Gotcha. Yes. Get into it. Get into it. Yes, lovelies. We are back. Hi. I'm sorry I missed last week. I ended up having to go into work a lot earlier than what I was expecting. And so I unfortunately could not record that episode for Storytime. And then I was in Cincinnati helping my best friend pack up her house because she's going to be in the midst of moving next week. So I do apologize for my absence. Hi. Welcome back to Storytime. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max relaxing, chillaxing time, in between time, mean time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time. Any time that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, music, and many, many more in between. Hi. Okay, so the chapter we're about to read, is going to contain moments of racial stereotypes and slang and depictions that are antiquated. Keep in mind, this book was made in 1977. So the attitudes of then, quite honestly, are reflective of the attitudes of certain communities now. But I love this chapter because this is what I consider to be the proper example of fighting for those without your privilege. What does that mean, children? It means there are people like myself who are black and brown, who are treated less than by those who are white. Not everybody is like that. Let's be very clear. There are two distinctive communities. There are our white allies of allyship, meaning white people who love people regardless of their skin color. And no, that doesn't mean I don't see color. Everybody sees color. That is an actual thing. Unless you're actually clinically colorblind, the statement of I don't see color is actually more offensive than just saying like, hey, I love all people regardless of color. Like, I love you because you're my friend Chris, not because you're my black friend Chris. Kids, you know what I'm talking about. You like your friend because of how cool they are, the toys they have, the style they have. It has nothing to do with their background, which is why kids are awesome, which is why racism and prejudice is not something that's born, it's something that's taught. And that's not something we tolerate over here, okay? As I've always said before in Storytime with Chris, there's no judgment here, there's love here. We educate, we invigorate, and we reciprocate with love. That's what we do over here. So the chapter I'm about to read you, I did a whole 20-minute video on Instagram a few years ago when I read that chapter. And it blew me away. So let's go back into the world of Will's family and Stephen being involved, being home from military leave, and the fact that now Will has successfully gathered the 6 signs, and now Merriman is doing his part to try to set up the necessary place they need to go in order to take their last, stand against the darkest rising. This is the final battle. This is Endgame. This is Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is Endgame. This is what's the last book in Twilight? I think it's Breaking Dawn. There we go. Part 2. There we go. I never liked the Twilight movies. I was more so a fan of the books, but that's another conversation for another day. Anyway, kids, get ready to be educated and take the lessons from this conversation that's about to happen. And basically, see something, say something. Don't ever stand for bullying or bigotry or any type of mean-spirited nature. And if you're not confident that you're able to handle it, find an adult that you trust and know that can handle it better for you or help you to articulate what it is that you need to say in those situations, okay? Because there are people who put other people down based off of their skin color, their race, their ethnicity, their nationality even. And those people are miserable within themselves because they are intimidated by the brilliance of another human being. And that human being human and being themselves does not in any way, shape, or form take away from all the other amazing, beautiful human beings that exist on this planet. We're all here for a reason to add on to the beautiful melting pot that isn't just America, it is the world. Okay, because at the end of the day, we're all human, we all bleed the same, and though we may have different walks and ways of talking and ways of communicating and different spiritual figures we connect to, we all have relatable moments and situations that unequivocally make us human. Chapter 4, Midsummer Day. At a triumphant trot, Will mowed the last patch of grass and collapsed, panting, draped over the lawnmower handle. Sweat was trickling down the side of his nose, and his bare chest was damp, speckled with tiny cut stems of grass. Oof, it's even hotter than yesterday. Sundays, James said, are always hotter than Saturdays, especially if you live in a village with a small, stuffy church. James Stanton's law, you can call that. Go on, said Stephen, passing with his hands full of twine and clippers. It wasn't that bad. And for two horrible little boys, you still sound pretty angelic in the choir. He dodged neatly as Will flung a fistful of grass cuttings. I shan't be there much longer, James said with some pride. I'm breaking. Did you hear me croak in the canticle? You'll be back, Will said. Tenor, bet you. I suppose so. That's what Paul says, too. He's practicing. Listen. So what James is talking about, crack, so he means the vocal crack. When young men, and even young women, get to a certain point in their development and adolescence where their voice cracks, and it deepens or it changes. And I had to go through that, especially in high school. And it really tore me apart when I couldn't sing certain notes just by belting it, and I had to go into my falsetto. And so there was a time where I got a little depressed about that, but then I embraced it because I was like, I still can sing at the end of the day. I still can sing over and under the rafters on certain people. And so change is good. So James is happy that his voice is breaking, and just because he's no longer going to be a countertenor, he's going to drop to a tenor. So, yeah, musical terminology. Distant as a fading dream from inside the house, the soft, clear tone of a flute rippled up and down in scales and arpeggios. It seemed as much a part of the hot, still afternoon as the bees humming in the lupines and the sweet smell of the new-cut grass. Then the scales gave way to a long, lovely flow of melody, repeated again and again. Halfway across the lawn, Stephen stood caught into stillness, listening. My God, he's good, isn't he? What is that? Mozart, First Flute Concerto, Will said. He's playing it with the NYO this autumn. NYO? National Youth Orchestra. You remember, he was in it for years, even before he went to the academy. I suppose I do. I haven't been away so long. It's a big honor, that concert, James said, at the festival hall, no less. Didn't Paul tell you? You know Paul, old modesty. That's a lovely sounding flute he's got now, too. Even I can tell. Miss Graythorne gave it to him 2 Christmases ago, said Will. From the manor. There's a collection that her father made. She showed us. Miss Graythorne? Good Lord, that takes me back. Sharp wits, sharp tongue. I bet she hasn't changed a bit. Will smiled. She never will. She called me up her almond tree once when I was a kid, Stephen said, grinning reminiscently. I came climbing down, and there she was out of nowhere in her wheelchair, even though she hated anyone seeing that wheelchair. Only monkeys eat my nuts, young man, she said. I can still hear her, and you're not even make a powder monkey at your age. Powder monkey? James said. Boys in the Navy in Nelson's day, they used to fetch the powder for the guns. You mean Miss Graythorne knew you were going into the Navy? Of course not. I didn't know myself then. Stephen looked a little taken aback. Funny coincidence, though. Never occurred to me before. I haven't given her a thought for years. But James' mind had already taken off on a tangent, as if it frequently did. Will, whatever became of that little hunting horn she gave you the year she gave Paul the flute? Did you lose it? Never even gave it one good blow. I still have it, Will said quietly. Well, get it out. We could have fun with it. One day. Will swung the lawnmower round, shoving its handle at James' unready hands. Here, your turn. I've done the front. Now you can do the back. That's the rule, said their father, passing with a weed-loaded wheelbarrow. Fair's fair. Share the burden. My burden's bigger than his, James said dolefully. Nonsense, said Mr. Stanton. Well, it is, actually, Will said. We measured once. The back lawn's 5 feet wider than the front and 10 feet longer. Got more trees in it, said Mr. Stanton, unclipping the catch box of grass cuttings from the front of the mower and emptying it into his barrow. That makes more work, not less, James drooped more dolefully still. Going around them, trimming afterwards. Go away, said his father, before I burst into tears. Will took the box and clipped it back on the mower. Goodbye, James, he said cheerfully. You haven't finished yet either, matey, Mr. Stanton said. Stephen needs some help tying up the roses. A muffled curse came from the front garden wall. Stephen, embarrassed by the sprawling branches of a climbing rose, was sucking his thumb. I believe you may be right, Will said. Grinning, his father picking up the wheelbarrow and prodded James and the lawnmower in the driveway. Will was starting over the lawn when his elder sister Barbara came out of the front door. Tea's nearly ready, she said. Good. Outside, we're having it. Good. Better. Best. Come and help Steve fight a rose bush. Rambler roses, spilling great swaths and bunches of red blossom, grew along and over the old stone wall that bordered the road. Gingerly, they untangled the most wildly sprawling arms, drove stakes into the gravelly earth, and tied the branches to keep the billowing sprays of roses off the ground. Ouch! Said Barbara for the 5th time as a rebellious rose branch scored a thin red line across her bare back. Your own fault, said Will unfeelingly. You should have more clothes on. It's a sunsuit for the sunshine, ducky. Nakedness, said her younger brother solemnly. Be a shameful condition for a human being. Tain't right. 'Tis a disgrace to neighborhood, it is. Barbara looked at him. There you stand wearing even less, she began indignantly, then stopped. Slow, said Stephen, very slow. Oh, you, Barbara said. A car passed on the road, slowed suddenly, stopped, and began backing gradually until it was level with them. The driver switched off his engine, hauled himself across the seat, and stuck a heavy-jowled red face out of the window. Might the biggest of you be Stephen Stanton, he said with a clumsy joviality. That's right, said Stephen from the top of the wall. He gave one last blow to a stake. What can I do for you? Name's Moore, the man said. You had a little run-in with one of my boys the other day, I gather. Richie, said Will. Ah, said Stephen. He jumped down from the wall to stand next to the car. How do you do, Mr. Moore? I dropped your son into some water, I believe. Green water, said the man. Ruined his shirt. I should be happy to buy him a new one, Stephen said easily. What size is he? Don't talk rubbish, the man said as expressionless. I just wanted to get the rights and wrongs of it, that's all. Wonder why a young man like you should be playing those sort of games with kids. Stephen said, It wasn't a game, Mr. Moore. I simply felt very strongly that your son deserved to be dropped into the water. Mr. Moore ran one hand over his large, glistening forehead. Maybe. He's a wild kid, that one. They kick him around. He kicks back. What'd he do to you? Didn't he tell you? Will said. Mr. Moore looked across the low wall at Will as though he were something small and irrelevant, like a beetle. What Richie told me, it wasn't something that gets people dropped in streams, so like as not, it wasn't true. That's what I want to get straight. He was tormenting a younger boy, Stephen said. There's not much point in going into detail. Having a bit of fun, he said. Not much fun for the other one. Richie said he didn't lay a finger on him, Mr. Moore said. He just threw his music case full of music into the stream, that's all, Will said shortly. Well, Mr. Moore said. He paused, tapping the edge of the car window absently. It was that Indian boy from the common, I gather. The three stands stood looking at him in silence. He stared back, blankly. At length, Barbara said in a small, polite voice, Does that make a difference? Before the man could answer, Mr. Stan said amiably from behind them, Good afternoon. Afternoon, said Mr. Moore, turning his head with a tinge of relief in his tone. I'm Jim Moore. We were just... Yes, I heard some of it, Mr. Stanton said. He propped himself against the edge of the wheelbarrow. He had just sat down and took out his pipe and matches. I must say, I thought Steve might have overreached himself a bit that day. Still, the thing is, you can't always believe these people, you see, said the man in the car, smiling confident of agreement. There was a silence. Mr. Stanton lit his pipe. He said, puffing, I don't quite follow, I'm afraid. Stephen said coldly, It wasn't a case of believing anyone, just of what I happened to see for myself. Mr. Moore was looking at Mr. Stanton with a kind of anxious adult bonhomie. Made a lot of fuss about nothing, that kid, I dare say. You know how they are, always on about something. True, true, said Roger Stanton, his round face placid. Mine usually are. Oh, no, said Mr. Moore heartily. I'm sure your bunch are very nice. I meant coloreds, not kids. He went on, plowing unawares through the silence that came again. I see a lot of them at work. I'm in personnel, you know, Tam's manufacturing. Not much I don't know about Indians and Pakis after all these years. Of course, I've got nothing against them personally. Very intelligent, well-educated, some of them. Got myself an op from an Indian doctor at the Memorial Hospital last year. Clever little chap he was. Barbara said in a small, same polite voice, I expect even some of your best friends are Indians and Pakistanis. Her father gave her a sharp warning glance, but the words went flickering quite over Mr. Moore's stubbly head. He chuckled at Barbara, very much the jovial, appreciative male indulging a pretty 17-year-old. Well, now, I wouldn't go that far, I'll be honest with you. I don't think they should be here. Them or the West Indians. Got no right, have they? Taking jobs that should go to Englishmen with the country and the state it is. Stephen said quietly, We do have unions, Mr. Moore, and they aren't exactly helpless. Most of those famous jobs are the ones Englishmen don't want to do. Or that the immigrants do better. The man looked at Stephen with resentment and dislike, his thick jaw hardening. One of those, are you? A bleeding heart, don't try and teach me, young man. I've seen too much of the real thing. One Paki family rents a 2-bedroom house, and the next thing you know, they've got 16 of their friends and relations living there, like rabbits. And half of them having babies free on the National Health Service at the British taxpayers' expense. Remember your Indian doctor? Stephen said, still softly. If it weren't for that immigrant doctor and nurses, the National Health Service would fall apart tomorrow. Mr. Moore made a contemptuous noise. Just don't try and tell me about colored people, he said. I know. Stephen leaned back against the wall, twisting a piece of raffia between his fingers. Do you know Calcutta, Mr. Moore? He said. Have you ever had beggars grabbing at your feet, calling out to you, children half the size of Will here, with an arm missing, or an eye, and ribs like xylophones and their legs sticking with sores? If I lived in a place with that kind of despair around me, I think I just might decide to bring up my kids in a country where they have a better chance. Especially a country that had exploited my own for about 200 years. Wouldn't you? Or Jamaica, now. Do you know how many children get a secondary school there? Do you know the unemployment rate? Do you know what the slums are like in Kingston? Do you know? Stephen, said his father gently. Stephen stopped. The raffia string in his hand snapped. So what about it? All that stuff. The man's face had darkened. He leaned belligerently out of the window. His breath came more quickly. Let them solve their own problems, not come here whining over here. What's all that have to do with us? They don't belong here. None of them. They should all be thrown out. And if you think they're so bloody marvelous, you better go and live in their lousy countries with them. He caught Mr. Stanton's calm eye suddenly and tried visibly to control himself, jerking his head back from the window and sliding across into the driver's seat. Mr. Stanton came close to the wall where the car stood and took his pipe from his mouth. If your son shares your views, Mr. Moore, he said clearly, as I'm glad to find my son shares mine, then the stream episode isn't hard to explain, is it? We only have to decide what reparation you'd like. The pipe went back between his teeth abruptly. Reparation, hell! The man started his engine with a deliberate roar. He leaned over the seat, shouting above the noise, You just see what happens to anyone laying a finger on my boy again for the sake of some sniveling little wog, that's all. Let's see. He lurched back at the wheel and drove off, gears snarling. They stood looking after the car. Stephen opened his mouth. Don't say it, said his father. Don't say it. You know how many of them there are. You can't convince them, and you can't kill them. You can only do your best in the opposite direction. Which you did. He looked around, embracing Will and Barbara in a rueful smile. Come on, let's go and have tea. Pausing here for a second. There are a lot of people who will talk so much smack behind a keyboard, a tablet. Okay, that's my stomach. I apologize. I'm gonna dinner after this. I'm okay. It's just my stomach, my tummy rumbling. There are people who, and if you notice in the story, Mr. Moore never stepped out of the car. He did not step forward to Stephen. He was talking a lot of hateful jargon and rhetoric from the safety of his car. There are a lot of cowards on the internet, in real life, even in the real 3D or 4D, depending on what plane of dimension we're in, who talk a lot of hateful jargon behind those things because they're too scared to say it to your face. And then there are others who are more upfront and say some very nasty, mean-spirited things. And the reason why they do that is because of fear. Fear of the different, fear of the unknown, fear of things they don't have knowledge on. And so they demonize it and vilify it and stereotype it to where they're comfortable. I'm going to say this to the day I die. People will talk about you to the day you die, children. But it's not what they call you. It's what you answer to. You do not let other people tell you who you are, who your family is, who your loved ones are. You validate for yourself every day. What does validate mean? It means you support yourself and love on yourself in a genuine, sincere way, that when somebody comes up to you or a friend or a family member and says some mean, hateful, spirited stuff that's not okay, they can never break you. And they can never take you out of your character when you validate for yourself every day. You can be the only one who tells you who you are at the end of the day. You understand me? It's people like young women like Ruby Bridges who walked to school every day while there were angry white people screaming, yelling at her because she was a black girl who wanted to go to school. There are people who still cry wolf even after the tragedy of Emmett Till and the accusation of him whistling at a white woman that caused him to lose his life. There's young men like Trayvon Martin who was walking to the corner store with a can of Arizona and a bag of chips, but was in a hoodie and was shot. There is evil in this world. But when we validate for ourselves, when we call the truth out for what it is, evil will never win. And it may not seem like that right now in this particular climate we're in, but baby, there is still good in the world. There is still hope. And nothing, no matter what power, who is on a seat of power, can ever change that. And just like they politely handled that racist, xenophobic man, that's the same way you can do it in real time. Because people like that don't deserve your anger. They don't deserve your frustration. Okay. Just wanted to get that out there. And if nobody says it to you today, children, I love you. We all do. All of my wonderful, magical friends on this shelf, we all love you. Because you deserve to be here no matter what color you have, no matter what nationality, no matter where you're from, poor, rich, we love you over here. Okay? Love on yourself every day. And don't care about the ones that don't. Care about the ones that do. As I sip my tea on that. Will came last, trailing despondently. From the moment when he had heard the man in the car begin to shout and seen the look in his eyes, he had been no Stanton at all, but wholly an old one, dreadfully and suddenly aware of danger, the mindless ferocity of this man and all those like him, their real loathing born of nothing more solid than insecurity and fear. I'm gonna read that again. The mindless ferocity of this man and all those like him, their real loathing born of nothing more solid than insecurity and fear. It was a channel. Will knew that he had been gazing into the channel down which the powers of the dark, if they gained their freedom, could ride in an instant to complete the control of the earth. He was filled with a terrible anxiety, a sense of urgency for the light, and knew that it would remain with him, silently shouting at him far more vividly than the faded memory of a single bigot like Mr. Moore. "Come on, Tarzan," said Paul, thumping his bare shoulder as he came past out of the house. So Will came back slowly into the other part of his mind. They all gathered for tea as though the disturbing Mr. Moore had never been, but one of those unspoken censorships that come sometimes in close families. Those who had seen him made no mention of him to those who had not. Tea was laid out on the orange wicker table, glass-topped, that stood outdoors with its matching chairs in high summer. Will's spirits began to rise. For an old one with the taste and appetite of a small boy, it was hard to despair for long over the eternal fallibility of mankind when confronted with homemade bread, farm butter, sardine and tomato paste, raspberry jam, scones, and Mrs. Stanton's delicious, delicate, unmatchable sponge cake. Everything sounds good except the raspberry jam because I'm allergic, so everything else I'm absolutely here for, especially the sardines with the tomato paste, because that sounds super tasty. I love sardines. And anchovies. Anchovies on pizza is great. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. I said what I said. He sat on the grass. His senses were crammed with summer. The persistent zooming of a wasp lured by the jam. The grass smelled of James' partly cut lawn mingling with the scent of a nearby buddleia bush. The dappled light all around him as sunshine filtered through the apple tree overhead, lush in full green leaf, with small green apples beginning to swell. Many of the apples were fallen already, victims of overpopulation never to grow. Will picked up one of the little thick-stemmed oval objects and gazed at it pensively. "Put it down," Barbara said. "This'll taste better." She was holding out a plate with 2 scones spread thickly with butter and jam. "Hey," said Will. "Thanks." It was a small, warm kindness in a family as big as the Stantons. Self-service was a general rule. Barbara smiled at him briefly, and Will could sense her formless, maternal concern that her youngest brother had been upset by the violence of the man in the car. His spirits lifted. The old one within him thought, "The other side. Don't forget. There's always the other side of people, too." 3.5 more weeks of school, James said in a tone that was half delight, half grumble. He looked up at the sky. "I hope the holidays all like this." "The long-range forecast says it will begin pouring with rain the day you break up," said Paul, seriously, folding a piece of bread and butter. He went on through a mouthful. "It's due to go on for 3 weeks without stopping. Except once for August weekend." "Oh, no!" said James in unguarded horror. Paul looked at him owlishly over his horn-rimmed glasses. "It may very well be hail, and on the last day of July they're expecting a blizzard." James' face relaxed into a grin as relief twined with shamefaced rage. "Paul, you swine, Don't kill him," Stephen said. "Too fatiguing. Bad for digestions. Tell me, what are you going to do for the holidays instead?" "Scout camp some of the time," James said happily. 2 weeks in Devon. "Very nice, too." "I'm doing summer courses at the academy and playing in a jazz club at night," Paul said with a crooked grin. "Good Lord!" "Ah, the worm turns. Not exactly your kind of jazz, though." "Better nor not." "What are you going to do, Will?" "Loaf about like me," said Barbara comfortably from an armchair. "Well, as a matter of fact," Mrs. Stanton said, "Will has an invitation he hasn't heard about yet. Quite a surprise." She leaned forward with the teapot and began filling cups. "Your Aunt Jen telephoned this afternoon from London. She and David are up for a day or 2 with some group from Wales, and she wanted to know, Will, if you'd like to spend part of the holidays at the farm, as soon as school ends, if you like." Will said slowly, "That's good." "Wow," said James. "Don't tell Mary. She'll be livid. I thought she was going to get invited back to Wales this year." "Jen said something about Will getting along very well last year with a rather lonely boy who lived there," Mrs. Stanton said. Will said, "Yes, I did. His name was Bran." "You have to make sure it's a working holiday, you know," said his father. "Make yourself useful to your uncle. I know that part of Wales is almost all sheep. It's a busy time of the year on any farm." "Oh, yes," Will said. He picked up another of the small and mature apples and twirled it round and round, fast by its stem. "Yes, there'll be a lot of work to do." And that is where we will end for tonight. Let me tell you something. That's why I love this series. That's why I love this series. Susan Cooper, if you ever see this video, however, God bless you. Love you. I love that you made these stories. I love that you made the Bogart and the Monster another 2 set of books that are my favorites. You just have an incredible way of storytelling, and I love that. So, thank you. Thank you for all of that. Now, without further ado, I will bid you all good night. Good night, my lovelies. Take the lessons that I've imparted and use them to make this world a better place. Bye-bye.